Now let's be honest here. I think most people, they, they're they're normal, average people, and you get on a motorcycle, any motorcycle, and as soon as the road is open in front of you, there's a little bit of a hooligan in all of us, and this R1 seems to bring out the hooligan in me more than anything. But anyway, hey, if you like to watch in 4K, adjust your device accordingly. Now it looks to be just another really hot summer day. We got to move some motorcycles around. We got to get out on the open road early because it's really going to be a cooker later in the day. And if you're a subscriber to the videos, you know the bike you want to ride is always, well, it's never in front, almost never. Basically because we try to ride a different bike almost every day. And moving them around, good exercise of course, but just like anything, once I have them out in the driveway, I always try to look around and say, you know, boy, I'm really happy I got the MT-09. It's one of my favorites, of course. All my bikes are my favorites. But the R1 has another special niche. I've had both of these bikes since new. I love the color blue. I'm a Yamaha blue guy. And I love the fact that I have them both. And they are very different to ride, but they are both so much fun. It's hard to describe. And I always check the tires. This is just me from years of owning an airplane, an old airplane, a 1947 Air Coupe. You tended to check even more than what you're supposed to. And these bikes are, well, the R1 is 14 years old now. I still try to keep it looking pretty good. And all the little custom things I've done to it that customize it for me, I'm real happy with. I always have some yard work, some fish feeding, something I have to do that I don't have a whole lot of choices about it. It's just something that has to be done. And once that's all done and I get the radar detector all mounted up, I'm ready to have a cup of coffee, suit up, and go on the open road. So after that boring ride on Route 80, where you really have to watch out, that radar detector's beeping half of the time you're riding, you finally get into some nice back roads where it's not too crowded. There's some open road ahead of you, and the first thing you do, that little devil in the back of your mind says, are you a hooligan today? Oh, of course you are. Why would you want to be a solid citizen when you've got an R1 with a tank full of gas and some nice Pirelli Angel tires to wear out, and some nice, it's all nice. This bike is really a thrill to ride, believe me. Now, there's a lot of things very special about this bike that make it a unique, and to me, a very unique bike. The cross-plane engine, of course, is the biggest one. And the way it takes the gas, and the way at about 10,000 RPM, those velocity stacks come off the engine, and it turns into a rocket ship and wants to throw you off the back of the bike. But it's just, the other thing that's good about it, it's got such a nice low-end power band. You can ride it around in any gear and just, you don't have to worry about downshifting or anything. And it's got that sound, the sound to die for. Now this area where I ride, and it's about 30 miles from my house, but it's so low on traffic, number one, and there's always something like this car. All of a sudden there's an antique car with historic plates. And I always like to take a little break, aside from taking pictures. Take a little break and look around. You never know when you're going to find somebody really, really interesting to talk to. Maybe a guy that did the restoration himself, or that has some interesting information about the car. Or another cool thing, like Lincoln Park Airport with the electric airplanes. There's just a lot of stuff. Or Picatinny Arsenal with the tanks out on display. You go for a ride, and you never know where the road is going to take you now. It's uncanny. I looked at this this is a real nice example of a restored car, by the way. Here's the phone number if somebody is interested in more information. And, of course, he has historic plates. And I always like to look at these things. Now, I'm not a super car guy, but I would bet people that are into cars, they're just as passionate about their cars as I am about my motorcycles. Now, this is the first year that Yamaha made the cross plane for the street. Again, their racing history, they had done it in the past, of course. And this bike, when it came out in '09, and of course that's 13, 14 years ago, I went to see this down at Millville, and I had to have one. And the sound as Josh Hayes went by was to die for. Now, not everybody likes it. Some people like the sound of Harleys or Ducatis or something else, or R6s. But this, to me, is just a wonderful sound from the cockpit. And if you've ridden any of the smaller displacement bikes, especially the 600, the 4-cylinders, and any of them, you're always downshifting. Well, the unique thing about this bike is you almost never downshift. It has just got a power band, a power spread that really is just great on the street. Now, I always call it the love it or hate it styling, and it's the same if you have a '68 Camaro like Michelle has. Some people love it, some people hate it. I don't know how to deal with that other than say if you like it, great. If you don't, well, that's all there is to it. And it's funny, the MT-09 and the R1, I had to go crazy to get the color I wanted. And when I got this, I waited actually through a good part of the winter to get a blue one. And it was worth it. And being honest, it took me many, many attempts to get the ergonomics exactly the way I wanted them. I had many, many times I had changed the bars and changed where the controls were and raised the foot pegs up and down. Oh, look at this cannon. How cool. Like protecting America from whatever, from bears, I don't know. But the thing is, when you have a bike that fits you, and right now that bike fits me perfectly. It just didn't come that way. And it took me a long time to get it exactly the way I wanted it, and the pegs go up and down, and there just were a million little things that I had to get to where I was happy with it. But the good news is, once you get it, boy, you have it. You really have it forever.
on these back roads, the low end torque of this bike is just so, to me, so impressive. Now, the only downside of the whole bike, of course, because it's an '09, no traction control, no ABS either. It's scary to ride sometimes. And the Pirelli Angels seem to be wearing better than I thought they would. And when I decided to paint the wheels silver, John Pothia made me up a lot of little the Photoshop things with different color wheels, blue and silver and gold and everything. And I settled on silver, and I'm glad I did. Now, looking back, 14 years I've owned the bike. I had it since new, and I think it's been just about as bulletproof as anything I've ever had. I've had to put a starter motor in it, and I think that was just a defective starter. I actually used the excuse to make a video of how to do it that turned out to be 4 videos. It is a labor-intensive job to replace the starter in this bike, but if it's the only thing that ever went wrong, I gotta say, I just couldn't be happier with this bike. And getting on it and just waiting for that road to open up, that's a thrill. It's hard to describe to people unless you've actually experienced it yourself. Now, back in 2009, this was Super Bike of the Year. And as happens to all of us, time marches on. 14 years under the dam, water under the bridge, under the dam. It's hard to believe that time has gone by, because I remember the day I picked this up from Motorcycle Mall. I was just so happy. I couldn't believe that I finally got to really have the bike of my dreams. And 14 years later, I'm still dreaming about it. It's still, to me, a beautiful piece of machinery, and it's got so many things going for it, but it does not have, really does not have traction control.
So let's be honest, is the bike you ride turn you into a hooligan the minute there's no traffic in front of you, or there's no... All my bikes do. This one is probably the worst. That when the road is open in front of you and you look around, you look in the mirror, and you probably do it too. Maybe you're a hooligan too.
Now, whether you're a hooligan or a gentleman or some of each or a hybrid, either way, it doesn't matter. Enjoy the bike you decide you like to ride. And guys, thank you so much for watching.